Welcome! It's Facts You Don't Know. If it's your first time here and you want to find out new facts that will definitely make you smarter and more, well, and first make sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss anything.
"You are a useless old woman," her children told her. Months later, she'd regret it forever. Margarita had been a determined woman all her life. When she wanted something, it was difficult for something to get in her way. However, she did not imagine that her biggest dream as a child would have to be irretrievably postponed. She was born in a vibrant city, full of art, music, and colors. Her parents lived their life at a pace that, for many, was scandalous, because they lived without haste. They'd never worried about having more than they needed. They had their way of earning an honest living that allowed them to have time to devote to themselves, to appreciate nature, and keep intact in the capacity of wonder. Margarita was like them. They'd been late parents because when they learned that a baby was on the way, they were both very close. At 40 years, despite the unexpected, since they decided not to have children, they loved their baby before meeting her. That's why Margarita's childhood was as wonderful as any child could have. Her parents supported her in everything in which she was showing some skill. Margarita had already painted, danced, acted, sung, and been part of a basketball team, everything before the age of 10. But it was to this that she discovered a passion that would become her life dream: taekwondo. Since then, her entire childhood and adolescence was dedicated to this martial art. The belts she wore quickly went from white to yellow, then green, blue, and red. Despite her skills in the sport that helped her advance quickly and comprehensively, it was not easy for her to deal with those who told her that taekwondo was not for girls. But clothed as always with her strong character and equally powerful spirit, she continued on her way despite many malicious comments she had to endure. When she was 19, Margarita was already wearing her first black belt, ready to embark on the path of improvement and become a great teacher. But then something unexpected happened. One day, leaving her training session, she was approached by 3 men who forcibly took her in a van to a desolate place where they raped her and then left her right there alone and without knowing where. Despite so many years of training in martial arts, she was not prepared to face 3 men with the worst intentions. The pain that settled in Margarita's heart since then did not prevent her from finding her way back home, but she was never cured and did not practice taekwondo again. When her parents found out what had happened to her, they broke into 1,000 pieces. Their daughter, what they loved the most, had been abused in the most vile way. But no one else believed her, and she had to bear the weight of discredit supported only by her parents, who were equally blamed for not having raised their daughter well and allowing her to become a single mother. Because yes, Margarita had become pregnant. Her decision not to practice taekwondo again was definitely sealed with the birth of her first child. A short time later, Margarita finally met a kind-hearted man whom she married and had 2 more children. For many years, she cared for and respected again, and the bitterness in her heart gradually eased. Her husband and children had been a balm to her aching heart. Life went by, and Margarita was forgetting that past that tormented her. The only thing she started to miss at that time was taekwondo. But her life was so different now that she simply thought there was no point in longing for something she no longer had the strength to do. Or so she thought. Only until that moment, when her husband had fallen ill and they were both in their 60s. It was that Margarita dared to tell him everything about her past. When they met, she did not want to give details of her first child, and she loved her from the beginning, regardless of her past. He never pressured her. But then when Margarita saw that her husband might die, she told him everything. He, without delving into the painful aspects. If he asked her something that she was not expected to return to taekwondo, let him promise it. After that conversation, her husband did not live much longer, and then Margarita was forced to keep her promise. She started training again and was amazed at how quickly she got back in shape. Her muscles hadn't forgotten what she was truly passionate about. She felt at peace with him again. But she decided not to tell her children about her training, preferring it to be something about her and her husband, only wherever he was. But her children did not see in her the passion and capacity that her husband saw, and soon they began to treat it as an object that's kept in the house, but that's never looked at, much less spoken. They came and went, but none of the three really cared about her. Margarita knew that could happen, but it never ceased to amaze her that children who had been so attached to her now treated her like a zero left. Despite the sadness that the relationship with her children caused her, Margarita was helped by continuing her training to free herself from everything that oppressed her. And to the surprise of all her classmates, she again wore the black belt that had been suspended 45 years ago. Her teacher, on the other hand, already knew that she would achieve it. What Margarita did not imagine at the time is that she would have to use what she learned outside of training. One day, while she was calm, sunbathing on the terrace of the house that she'd shared with her husband, her children arrived without warning. What seemed like the beginning of an unusual visit soon turned into hell for Margarita. Well, her children had only come to inform her that they would transfer her to a home for the elderly because they needed to sell that house and she was already too old to support it alone. Tempers were on fire, but when her children told her that she was a worthless old woman, she made a decision. At that point, she simply told them to give her 3 months to get used to having to leave, and they accepted it, convinced of their triumph. But they did not know that 3 months was what her mother was missing to reach the 10th degree in black belt, the maximum degree. Margarita fully devoted herself to taekwondo in her last 3 months and graduated with honors as the grand teacher. The time had come for her children to know it, but she would not only tell them, she would demonstrate to them. When they came to the invitation of the house's farewell dinner, they found her dressed in a uniform and her black belt with the 9 shiny yellow stripes that denoted her mastery. But they did not have time to be amazed at their mother's clothing, because without them having time to complain, the 3 of them were on the ground. They'd been knocked down in seconds by their mother, who now stood mighty before them. She hadn't caused them any physical harm, but she had defeated them. The 3 now saw in their mother what a reality was like. A strong woman, much stronger than they could ever dream of, and as such they had to respect her. From that moment on, her children saw her again with the eyes of recognition. They learned then how Margarita had trained since she was 10 years old, but she didn't tell them what caused her to leave for so long. However, they saw the pain in her eyes and preferred not to ask questions. But they learned to value the great teacher and mother who had given them life and made Margarita's last years peaceful and full of love. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks. We'll be right back to you as fast as we can.